Thanks for coming to my repair shop. This is the prologue for the E30 K24 project. First thing I have to do is make some platforms for a couple storage areas. One is a 5x3 shed that will hold the air compressor and some storage. The other is a 6x6 tent that I will be using mainly for car part storage for this project. Here you see me cutting up some lumber. So it's pressure treated 2x4s that I'm going to be using as the framing for the floors. I used a website called OptiCutter to come up with my cutting plans. Just drew out what I needed, just plugged some numbers in, and it gave me all of the cut lengths and the number of things that I'll need. Here I'm using the OSB that will become the floor as a table to line up all of my pieces. Just marking off some of these. Using an extra piece of wood and a clamp to hold everything together to get it as straight and square as possible. I'm not building a house, just building a shed, so just getting everything pretty close here. We'll be using some blocking though, because these spans are long, so I don't want the wood to shift out of place too much for when I go to put the flooring down. So I'm marking my centers of the boards on the other side here so I can get those screwed in, just using some 4-inch GRK fasteners. I left my drill on the other side of the table like a doof, but I'm getting this blocking put in. Again, just clamping everything down. I probably should have done this on the floor, but I like to make things difficult on myself, especially when I get busy. So after I get these in, I'm gonna have to pull the framing apart just a smidge to get this last block in. Once that's in, I can go ahead and get that screwed in, straighten everything up, and move on to the 5x3 framing. Now this one I screwed up a little bit that you'll see. Not only did I count wrong, but I also measured wrong based on that count that was wrong. So I'm going to have to end up cutting an extra span as well as all brand new blocking. But I will end up using those pieces in the future for spacers for the frame. On the ground, I'm going to be using some concrete pavers as footings. So same exact process as before, just getting the edges screwed in, and here I am figuring out what I did wrong. So I'm gonna cut an extra piece here. I always buy a couple extra pieces because I end up using lumber for various things anyway, not just for each project. So it all works out in the end in my book. Just getting these screwed in. This isn't ground contact lumber, this is just regular pressure treated lumber because it will be outside. The flooring I know is just OSB, but I'm going to treat it with a bunch of coats of weather sealing, which should hopefully keep it in decent shape for as long as I'll need it. This OSB is like a third the cost of pressure treated stuff, so even with the gallon of weather sealing I got, so given that, it just made more sense. I'm trying to do this on a budget. So out here, I rented a rototiller from Home Depot. They're pretty cheap for, I think it's like 50 bucks for a day or like 35 for a few hours. I ended up returning it the same day, so I only paid the 4-hour price, but just got a lot of roots and various other rocks and stuff to get through here as I till and rake and till and rake until I can get it as level as possible. Once I got through most of the roots, it was actually pretty easy, so now I'm just going to go over the whole area and get everything nice and loose so it's easier to level it out. Just doing a quick check. We'll do some more raking and some more tilling if needed. But for the most part, it's pretty good. Here's GG coming to check out what I'm doing. So I'll get some pavers down, measuring these out, figuring out where I need them. So I ended up using 9 pavers for this, which I think is sufficient considering it's not going to be holding a ton of weight. But now I'm just leveling and scraping and leveling and scraping. It's about like 95 degrees out with humidity. Felt like well over 105 this day, so... Alright, dragging this thing out here and getting it laid out. Checking the sturdiness of it and the level of it. Getting these pieces of blocking that I originally cut used as spacers. Getting everything checked out and all seems good. So we're going to bring in the flooring on the next day. And we're going to add some 1/8 spacers in between for swelling purposes. We're going to get the edges screwed down. And chalk some lines out so that way I can get these screws in as quickly as possible. Moving on to the 5x3 shed. This one obviously a lot easier. Just getting some screws around the edge. Then I'm going to use a T-square to find the lines for the floor spans and then get those screwed in as well. Alright, bringing in the metal shed here. Get this thing unboxed. It's pretty decent quality considering how cheap it is. I just went with something that was 5x3 that fit my budget and didn't have the worst reviews on Amazon. So you get the frame out here, get some of the corners up, start getting the wall pieces in. At this point everything's kind of flimsy, but once I start getting this border at the top put in, it actually becomes pretty rigid, and I was kind of impressed with how structurally sound it seemed. I mean, for a cheap metal shed, that is. So getting the roof put on. My camera died after this, and I didn't notice until later, so here are a few shots of the shed all completed. Actually went together pretty decent. The doors were kind of a pain, but I got them in there pretty good. Inside, the air compressor, just a few things right now. I will end up building a shelf with some extra wood I have lying around. The valve on the bottom of this is a normally closed valve powered by a switch, a timer there that will open it for 2 seconds every hour to reduce condensation buildup. And in the back here, got some air lines, and the electrical lines run from inside the garage. Alright, moving on to the tent. This thing also pretty decent considering its price. I didn't need something super expensive, and 6x6 sheds are way more expensive than what I wanted to spend, and again, all I need is something to keep the rain out. So following the instructions, I think it was only like 4 or 5 pages of just pictures, so it wasn't too descriptive, but I ended up getting it worked out. Got the legs all together and screwed it to the base while I get the tent actually put on, so that way it doesn't shift around too much. And then I'll end up unscrewing the front feet while I put these braces in at the bottom. So I'm going to use zip ties instead of the elastic bands they give you, because the elastic bands they got this ball in the end that's kind of a pain to get everything connected easily. So zip ties work a lot better. I'm using thread locker on all the nuts for these clamps because I do not want them to come off at all. These cheap connections, usually they will back out eventually, so I'm just going to use some red thread locker. So getting the front door on, everything went together pretty smoothly. Gonna add some screws around the edge to keep the bottom down, and yeah, that's it, all finished. Well, Thanks for watching the first video here. I promise there will be plenty of car stuff coming up, especially the E30 project and a few other things. Thanks for coming by my repair shop. I'm Vinny. You've been great, and I will catch you guys next time.